This is Dharma Drops with your host, Rebecca Warfield. This podcast is a little bit about yoga, a little bit about life, and a little bit about whatever. And just as a warning, this podcast is unscripted, so that means I might regret a few things that I say. But hey, maybe I'll say some pretty awesome stuff too. Remember, these are musings, not truths. Buckle up, giddy up, because here we go. Hey, Dharma Drops listeners, it's me, your host of Dharma Drops podcast, Rebecca Warfield, and I am here with a friend of my friend Angela. So anyone who's a friend of Angela is a friend of mine. So I guess technically then, my new friend, yoga teacher and Pilates teacher, Jonni Garro. How's it going, Jonni?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing so well. Thank you for joining today. So are you in California? Is that correct?
Yes, I'm in San Diego. Well, San Diego County. We have our own city called La Mesa. And it's more East County near San Diego State, if anybody's familiar. And I actually live on a lake. It's this little treasure that I didn't even know about. I grew up in San Diego. And when I met my husband, he told me that he lived on this place called Lake Murray. And it's great because it's 15 minutes away from downtown.
Oh, nice.
So it's this little slice of nature in the city.
I love San Diego, and I was in San Diego a few years ago, and I guess it was San Diego State University. I can't remember now. It's starting to fade, but I'm pretty sure we were at San Diego State University, and then nearby there were these like beautiful cliffs with the path that takes you down to the water. And I went down there, and there was a man who was naked in a Santa hat.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So you were actually at UCSD, and that's Black Beach. Yeah. And it's one of the most gorgeous stretches of beach in San Diego. It's near La Jolla or in La Jolla. And it's a legally nude beach. So you see a lot of things down there. Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know. And he was in a Santa hat harassing everyone.
Yeah. So, yep. So if you're a nudist, you can go to Black's Beach and have a great day.
I thought you were going to be like, oh, I don't know where that is. And you're like, oh yeah.
No. Oh yeah. That's like a spot. Yeah.
That's so funny.
You see a lot of yoga down there.
Of course you do. That's so funny.
Yeah.
I am glad that you're here. And so you know Angela through your SmartFLOW training with Andy Carpenter, correct?
Yes. I met Angela almost 2 years ago. Such a sweet gal. And that training, I had done many hours with Annie and with Annie's assistant, Tiffany Russo. And that's the first time I had met Angela. And it was such a sweet training because it was a very small group. And some of Annie's trainings are massive. And so this one was so small and we really got to know everybody in the room. And so, you feel something about the SmartFLOW family, you feel this soul connection with people. And so I always call them my SmartFLOW sisters. It's just so Angela's one of my SmartFLOW sisters. Yeah. So we spent 2 weeks together.
Oh, cool. So Annie came to Wilmington and did a workshop. So that was my only chance that I've had so far to practice with her in real life. I actually signed up for her 300-hour training, but I had some life dramas and some health problems come up. So I had to step out, but hopefully one day we'll be in a training together.
Yes. That will be so fun. I love Annie's trainings. I love what I've learned through Tiffany Russo as well. SmartFLOW really was the thing that I was looking for, what I was feeling instinctually with my yoga practice and just my history of being I've been a mover my entire life. I'm a former dancer. I'm a Pilates teacher, but Annie really puts the pieces together in such a gorgeous way. And it's so tangible. And the fact that you allow people to feel their own unique body, to me, it's like shaking hands with yourself again after a very long time. Particularly in our world, we're so external. And I believe that Americans are very cerebral, different than like when I've worked with bodies. Now I've worked with so many bodies. Bodies from different countries are a little bit more grounded in their bodies. But Americans are so cerebral, which is great, but we're very disconnected. I'm like, neck down. People don't know what's going on. So Annie's methodology really allows people to go, well, what is my inner heel doing? And what is, what's my outer shin? I've never felt that before. And when I do this, what's the effect of that? And then it just kind of transfers into your life. When I do this, what's the effect? If I try this and have a little sense of play, what's the shift? Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Maybe the road today is different than it was yesterday. I find that's most likely, that's usually what it is for me. The path is always a little different because I'm a little different.
Sure.
But SmartFLOW has allowed me to really jump inside and shake hands with myself again and go, wow, I missed her.
It's a really
it's been a
beautiful
while.
way.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful way of saying that, to shake hands with yourself, because it is a return to self. But for sometimes, when I say like, oh, yoga is a return to self, it's kind of hard to explain what that means. But it is like a meeting of yourself. And that I know we're in the middle of the coronavirus, we're not supposed to be shaking hands, but that is
Yeah,
like
but you
the ultimate
can do it to
handshake.
yourself. Yeah, you can give
Mhm.
yourself your own hug. And I think of myself as a child, and I had this great belief system in myself. Like you see these kids now going viral that are giving themselves, like pep talks, like you're great, you're this, you're that. I was that kid. I had incredible self-esteem. I
Mhm.
believed that I could do whatever I wanted to do. And I also grew up with incredible privilege. So I had a lot of access to things that I could do whatever I wanted to do.
Sure.
And I knew it and I appreciated it. But then something happened when I was about maybe 19 or 20 that other people's belief systems I started believing. And
Mhm.
particularly going into the dance world, like you
Yeah.
have so much talent, yet you don't have the body. And instead of saying, okay, let me be a pioneer and show you how this body can be on Broadway, I step
Mhm.
back and I say, you know what, you're right. I don't have the body. I will starve myself down to be the body so I can get the role. Or even like I still do a little bit of acting. And my agent in San Diego, when I first met him, he says, you're so great. I don't know what to do with you. I've never met anyone like you.
Mhm.
Let me be patient. I'll figure it out. And I just sat back and said, okay, I'm going to let him figure it out. He's the guy in charge, instead of saying, let me show you what you can do with me. And
Yeah.
stepping into that. And so through SmartFLOW and yoga, I've been able to get that child part of me again and going, I know who I am. And now I'm going to take my power and take my position. And if you're not sure what to do with me, let me show you, because I'm not
Yes.
afraid to show it anymore. I'm not afraid. It's
Yes.
like, here I am, take it or leave it, but I know who I am. And I'm no longer going to hide behind the curtain and wait for somebody else to pull the curtain for me.
You
I'm
know,
the one in charge.
I grew up in the dance world myself. I was trained in classical ballet, but it was clear from like the time I was a small child, I was always going to be too tall. That was
Mhm.
like never going to change. And then I started turning into, as you said, right before we started recording, like a healthy size 10. Me too. And I have breasts, and I remember that they're not small. I remember my
Yeah.
dance teacher yelling at us and like yelling at us to tape our boobs down and to do all these things. And that
Oh,
got
yeah.
so deeply ingrained into me and my body for so long. It's something, of course, I actually still battle with now. But I will say I had been following, I don't know if you follow her, Diane Bondi on Instagram. You know who she is?
No, I don't.
She's
I'll have to
awesome.
check
So
her out.
she's a yoga teacher, and she and another teacher, Amber Carnes, I just finished their training online called Yoga for All. And
Mm.
it teaches yoga teachers how to really teach any type of yoga class for all body types. And it was in that training, and I was like, you know what? Forget all these dancers and forget all, even in the yoga communities, there's a lot of emphasis on smallness sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, forget it. I was like, forget it. I got boobs and I'm not going to be ashamed of this anymore in my yoga practice, So
Yeah.
these things stay with us for a long time.
Well, that's why I love SmartFLOW, because Annie teaches for each individual, unique, special person.
Mhm.
How I do Warrior One is way different from how you do Warrior One. And
Mhm.
that's how it's not one size fits all. And that's why I love it, because then I could embrace and celebrate who I am. I'm a size 10. I have a belly. I have boobs. When I do peacock pose, I can't put my hands in the proper position, what is textbook, because the boobs get in the way. They're
That's
too big.
me in cow face pose. I'm not folding forward
Yeah.
because my boobs are
Yeah,
in the way. I'm
it's
not going
it's
anywhere.
not gonna happen. Yeah, anytime I go into like a twist, I kind of have to do like a maneuver
Oh, me
of
too.
to, and it's like it's like, yoga was originally for 14-year-old boys. I'm not a
Yep.
14-year-old Indian boy. I am a 42-year-old white curvy woman. I'm Sicilian. I'm a red-haired Sicilian. Lots of fire. So, this is my whole shift because I battle it every day. I had an eating disorder when I was a dancer. Um, I know when I look in the mirror, it's not what I really truly see. I know that
Yeah.
my mind's not right with my body, but I have the choice to either live and be suffering or be peaceful. And I made that
Mhm.
choice a few years ago. It was actually my sweet husband. We were on our honeymoon at the Louvre and we we're in the sculpture area and he's looking around and I turn bright red. Of course, since I have reddish hair, I get red like head to toe. And he goes, "These ladies look familiar." And I'm looking at him and I'm like, "Oh my gosh." He goes, "You realize that that's your body. And why is it that everyone's sitting there celebrating this gorgeous work of art? Why can't you celebrate yourself the same way?"
Oh, that's so
And
sweet.
and I was like, truth bomb. Oh my gosh. I'm like, in that moment, I'm like, no more. No more am I going to suffer. And I know it's going to be a daily practice as yoga that when those thoughts come in, I'm in charge to shift it instead of going, oh, my belly. It's like, thank God for this body that allows me to do so many incredible things. I mean, I've restructured it. It's no longer my body. It's my soul suit. It's my house for my soul. And it's important. And
Mhm.
it's my job to keep it strong. And that's in mind, body, and spirit. And those negative thoughts that come in about my body, I need to then use my yoga and shift those thoughts and go, okay, I have a belly, but this is the same belly that allows me to do Shirshasana A, my favorite pose. And these legs allowed me allowed me to do incredible hiking with my husband all over the world.
Mhm.
And I'm healthy and I'm strong. And, let's take care of our soul suits and honor it and celebrate it and take a moment and say, thank you, thank you, thank you for being my home for this life.
You
And it's
know,
changed everything.
you mentioned too, that sometimes these thoughts come up. And I think that, things that are ingrained in our minds, they don't ever really go away necessarily. We just learn how to flip the script and how to change our
Mhm.
perspective on these things. And I have some similar thoughts in my yoga practice, just like in dance. I mean, this isn't true across the board, of course, but there is, like I mentioned before, some emphasis on smallness in yoga, especially if you're looking at Instagram and stuff. And
Oh,
so in
yeah.
my practice, sometimes I'm like, God, I don't want my boobs to like hang out, or I hate when my shirt flips up. And one thing that I always try to remind myself is that doesn't matter because I'm stronger than I've ever been in my entire life, in my body and spirit, and those are the things that matter more. And when I shift for me, when in my yoga practice, when I start shifting to that sort of conversation, that's when I really start to feel empowered and embodied in the experience more.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
And you're just so present. And then you switch from that place of suffering to the place of peace and
Yes.
acceptance. And it's like, some people have been blessed with just incredible aesthetics when it comes to the body and what we think is, you know, textbook beautiful, particularly in dance. There's an
Mhm.
aesthetic. But, I was like, I'm tired of suffering. And also, I've also come to the point that I no longer comment on people's bodies of how they look because even if I
Mm.
notice somebody has lost weight, I don't know where they are mentally. And I know when I was
I
at
j
my thinnest, I got the most attention. But if people knew what I was battling internally and how I was
Yes.
abusing my soul suit, I don't think they would be celebrating that. So I don't comment anymore.
I just posted about this on Instagram because, you never know what's going on in people's lives. And for example, I was on Instagram. I can't talk. I was referencing myself, and at the last, I guess it was August of last year through January of this year, I had two back-to-back miscarriages, unfortunately, which caused
Mm,
a ton of hormonal imbalance and, of course, some depression, and my weight went up. And
yeah.
then as my weight goes down, people are like, oh, you're looking so good, which I know comes from a good place, but I'm quote looking good because I'm coming back from a lot of pain and a lot of sadness,
Yes.
And so when we comment on people's bodies, like you said, we're not really acknowledging all the other things that are happening in life.
Or all the other aspects of them. Like, why is so much of the
Yes.
identity about the body, particularly for women?
Hmm.
And, I even find this now, finally, we're starting to have this conversation, and even people, clothes companies are making things that are a lot more flattering for a bigger figure. Like, why is
Yeah.
it for years, everything was really like oversized and frumpy if you were above like a size 10? And it's like
Yeah.
these billowing tops. I'm like, that does nothing for your figure. It actually makes you look bigger. And
Hmm.
instead of having more tailored clothes that will like celebrate somebody's figure, they would just do these like tents, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want
Yeah.
to put on a tent. I
Yeah.
want to wear something that I feel sexy and cute like everyone else. Like, why can't I
Right.
feel that way too? So
Yeah.
it's, thank God things are starting to shift, and it's important to have these conversations. And like getting back to like not commenting on people, I mean, I have this weird thing because was so obsessive about weighing myself for such a long period of time, not really understanding what the scale is. Like, that's not a true gauge of
Hmm.
your weight. Um, I can look at photos of myself through over the years, and I have a very strange memory. I know what weight I am in every single photo. And so,
Interesting.
really interesting. So I can look at a photo of myself where I was very celebrated for what my soul suit looked like, and I was at a very unhealthy weight for my body,
Hmm.
and everyone was applauding me. And I look at that and I look at my eyes. I'm like, but you didn't see into my eyes. You didn't see how sad I was and how I was
Hmm.
feeling miserable, because that frame will not sustain me. I have learned that I don't feel good if I go under a certain weight. I feel my best. I mean, I feel my best at 165 pounds.
Hmm.
A lot of people would be like, that's big. My doctors told me, that's big. You need to lose weight. I'm
Oh
like,
my God.
I asked him, I said, how do you think I should lose weight? I'm curious to know. And he said, you should maybe take up running. And I told him, at the time I was running half marathons. I'm like, well, I'm about to run my third half marathon in a year. So I don't know how much more I can run. And I'm not sure if he believed me.
I mean, this is just crazy to me. I mean,
Yeah.
it just like blows my mind. And I guess in the same vein of conversation, I've mentioned this before on the podcast. There was a time, not anymore, but there was a time in my life where I ran a lot and I really enjoyed running. And I didn't get a back injury because of running, but after I had a back injury, I just sort of lost my love for running. But in short, while I was running, I was at my thinnest and probably, quote, whatever this means, my like healthiest and fittest. I
Hmm.
felt freaking terrible all the
Hmm.
time. I was tired. I didn't feel well nourished. I had a lot of injuries. I felt like I couldn't sustain, like, in order for me to keep that level of weight, I had to run 7+ miles every single day, which was completely depleting my energy. It was way
Yeah.
too much for me. Plus, like, because I still dance, I'm not professionally, but I do dance and perform still. So I'd also have to dance and do all these other things. And I felt terrible. And when I let it go, I might, quote, not have the aesthetic anymore, but I feel so much better.
Yeah. To me, it's about a feeling, and only you know that. And
Yeah.
going back to like yoga, when you really shake hands with yourself and ask yourself, how do you feel today? Like, really, how are you feeling? And be honest. And,
Mhm.
if you're over exercising to be a certain form because that's what you think is going to be the
Mhm.
best for you, but on the inside, if you're feeling like hell, that's something to
Yeah.
look at and start
Yeah.
asking the big questions. Is this actually the right thing for me? And I feel like when you really get to know yourselves and shake hands with yourself again, those answers become very clear. And then it's like,
Mhm.
okay, like, whose belief system is this anymore? Because I came to the point, I'm like, I'm so disconnected from my belief system of what that little girl believed, that I could believe I could be anything. And I thought I was great. Like, honestly, like, I think my parents are like, wow, she has a lot of confidence. I'm like, no, I have like, sure thing. I'm going to be on Broadway. I can do this. Nothing's going to stop me. So much confidence. And when that was lost, I really stopped believing me and started believing everyone else. And that's what I'm working to get back to. every day.
Yeah.
Like, what do I believe? And is that true anymore? Because also it shifts. Is that true for today? That's a good question I ask myself a lot. Is this true? And then I have to decide, is it true? Sometimes I don't know and I just let it sit.
I just recorded a podcast episode with Johanna Beekman. She's a Bhakti yogi or Bhakta and a kirtan artist. And gosh, I can't remember who she said taught her this. I'm sure people have heard this before, but asking the questions, is it true? Is it really true? And who would I be without that thought?
Mm-hmm.
So if you think like, gosh, I'm so fat, is it true? No. Is it really true? No. Who would I be without that thought? Then it opens up the possibility for all these other things. And I think that you hit the nail on the head though, when you said it's something that we do every day. It's
Every
not
day.
work that every day. It's not work that we do like, oh, how do I feel today? Is it true? And then not think about it for 6 months, every freaking day.
And creating that space, like this is what yoga has taught me. You create the space and the pause. So you can take the second and go, okay, my mind's spinning right now in the negative thought storm. Because sometimes it comes in like a storm. It happens with all of us. And you can take the pause and go, okay, this is an exercise I do. I'm like, okay, what are the thoughts that just went through my head in 10 seconds? Okay, there's this, this, and this, and this. And are these all true? And is it true right now? And I had to do this the other day. I actually have an audition this week, a big audition. And one of the biggest auditions I've had in a long time. And the other two gals who are up for it with me, I decided that they were better suited for the role before the auditions even happened. I decided. I was like, they're prettier, they're skinnier. It always goes back to that. They're probably funnier, more clever. Like, I don't even know these ladies. And I decided that was what it was. And so I stopped myself and I said, wait, is this true? Do you know this is true? I'm like, I do not know this is true because I don't even know these ladies. And I'm like, but what I do know is who I am. And who I am is I do like to share this creative part of me. And when I'm open and free, it floods out and people do respond to it. And it's my choice. Do I put the curtain back up and decide that nobody needs to see me because of whatever? Or do I open up the curtain and share myself? And I'm like, I'm going to open up the curtain and share myself because what this project is, it's comedic and maybe someone needs a laugh and maybe I'm the one that's going to deliver it for them. And why would I take that away from myself or others? So it's like this constant thing in all aspects of my life. I'm like, wait, is this really true? Let's look at this reasonably. I'm like, this one was not true because I don't know these gals.
It's sometimes too, when I ask these questions, like, is it true? Or I like stop to really pause and witness a thought or something. Usually I'm like, yeah, that's basically not true ever at any time in my life. Because the thoughts are just so out there sometimes and built from, like you said, all these other stories that aren't your own. And when you come to some sort of understanding or witnessing of that, most of the time, what I usually find is that wasn't true at all.
Yeah. And then I feel like I'm very clear with the people I really trust in my life who have a very open and honest lens. And even sometimes it's their perspective. It may not be true. I mean, this is another reason why Annie Carpenter is so brilliant. She has this way of just delivering, I call them the truth bombs. And when she starts to know you in the most loving but direct way. In the training where I actually met Angela, we're starting out, and this is me like being my Sicilian blood, like I overwork, it's the dancer, I'm the perfectionist, the whole thing. We're doing our opening ritual, our grounding work. And, it's supposed to be more easeful, and I am working. And Annie comes up to me in her sweet way and she goes, you overwork, right? And I was like, and like tears flood in my eyes because I knew it was true. That's a moment where that was true. And she was someone who knew me and decided to tell me the truth because she knew I was ready to hear it. And I have taken that one sentence and I have applied that now every single day. Are you overworking? How are you using your energy? It goes back to brahmacharya, and Annie explains it this way. How are you using your energy? I'm like, is this good for me right now? Again, knowing yourself. Does this serve me? And I can just look at it and witness it. And I do overwork to the point of exhaustion, and That's why quarantine for me has been a nice break. I know I'm so fortunate. I'm healthy. I have food abundance. I live in a gorgeous space, but it's made me pause
Yeah.
and stop the hustle and stop overworking and stop push. And I can actually rest.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
there's a lot to say about quarantine. I want to go back to something about Annie Carpenter really quickly before I forget. So, like I said earlier, I only had one opportunity so far to train with her in person. And it's very interesting to me how quickly she can pick up on things. Because in this
Mm-hmm.
training, she kept doing that very kind little smack of my legs, like,
Yeah.
work. You know what I'm talking about? It was the first time someone smacked me, and I was like in the yoga practice, like, I'm pretty sure she just hit me. But later, because she was on the podcast, which was so kind of her, and she very kindly said, it's my job, for example, to tell people like you when it's time to wake up. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, got it. Like it all sort of like came together in that moment, like her smacking my legs, this like opportunity to, or need to wake up. And then she also finished it with when, and she's like, and it's my job to know when you're ready. And I was like, oh, that's what this
Yeah.
all is. If that's what the whole thing is. And I know it sounds like, for people who maybe don't do yoga or haven't practiced with her, they might be like, what are you talking about? But I felt such a distinct correlation between this emphasis on correcting, or I shouldn't say correcting, but like smacking my legs, it's like wake up your legs work. And then it's time to wake up. And I was like, oh, damn, she's
Oh,
good.
yeah. Yeah. I
She's
mean,
really good.
that one thing, you overwork, right?
Yeah.
And this was after me doing hours of training with her. So she knew how I worked. And that moment I thought, oh my gosh, I'm overworking every aspect, every area of my life. And the tears came because I realized I'm not having that much fun anymore. I'm really
Mm,
tired. I've been working really hard for a really long time, but there's not that much joy anymore.
yeah.
And in that moment, I was like, I'm going to start having fun doing yoga again. And
Hmm.
since then, there's been a massive shift that it is a celebration. It's not so much about being perfect, having the perfect line like in dance. I've separated myself from that. It's
Mm,
not a performance. It's for me to feel something, whatever
yeah.
that may be, the good, the bad, the ugly. Bring
Hmm.
it all, because that's when I can decide what that is. And then I can decide how I'm going to heal it or how
Yeah.
I'm going to celebrate it or how an area of myself that I thought was lost, like that little girl, is now back. And it's like, how am I going to show that to the world? How am I going to share it? Because that's when I feel good. And that's when I feel awake and alive
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
purposeful. So,
Let me ask you, we didn't even talk about this. How did you come to the yoga practice?
so this, so I'm someone who I have a lot of siblings. I'm one of 5 children. I'm number
Oh.
3. And by the time I came around, my mom was really busy keeping the house and watching all these children. And when I was really young, my first experience with yoga, it's going to sound so silly, but my morning lineup on PBS was Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers, who was one of my first friends besides my sisters.
Oh, that's so
And
sweet.
afterwards, there was a class called Lillian's Yoga and You. And
I
this
think I
woman with a
remember
long
this.
braid and a leotard came on. It was the early 80s, and she taught yoga. And I did yoga with her because my mom was still doing things in the house. And it was a big mystery to me. She was on this carpeted platform. And to me, I'm like, how is she floating in space? And I would try to see if I could see stairs. I was maybe 3. And I remember trying to do a headstand with Lillian. So that was my first approach. And then just kind of weaving in my life, there was always these undertones of more like Eastern thought and spiritual thought. My dad he's now passed, but he was a devout Catholic, yet he meditated every day and he spent some time at self-realization in Cardiff.
Mm,
So he had this strange combination. It's like he had this huge faith in his religion, yet he meditated over an hour a day. And he was always
oh,
reading books and so had this other, so it was just kind of there. He didn't put it on us at all, but it was just kind of lingering. So I was always very interested. And then in college, I studied acting at Fordham, and we had a very physical based acting program. And it was very movement based, and part of our training was yoga. So that was another
Mm.
time it came to me. And then finally, the last time, when I was dancing in New York, a friend of mine was doing Bikram, and she said how skinny she got. And I decided I needed to do Bikram too to be skinnier to dance. So
Oh
there's
my
that. But then I call like Bikram like the gateway, because it got me into the discipline of it. It got me into, I'm going to devote time every day to do this practice. And then when I moved back to San Diego from New York, I was in a car accident and there was a studio, and I went because I thought maybe that will help my back feel better. And then that was it. I met a teacher there named Anna Spalding, and she's still teaching in San Diego. She's a beautiful Anusara teacher. And there was something about her, again, me not believing in myself at that time in my life, when doing inversions or anything, she would come up to me and say, I believe in you. You can do this. And I would think, okay, I have zero self-belief in myself, but this lady who hardly knows me believes in me. So she must be seeing something. And I'm such a good, I obey, because that's like the ballet in me. You obey your teacher. And so she would say, try it. And I go, I can't disobey my teacher. I have to do what she tells me to do. And, she believes in me. So I guess I'll try it. And then eventually I started believing in me, and I started to trust my body, and I started to play a little bit more. And then that was that. And then I just went on this journey of, now I need to find a really good teacher to, I wanted like a method. There's so much yoga now. I'm like, I need a method. I need a technique. I came from a world of technique, and like, how do you do a warrior one? It wasn't really broken down. It was like, put your foot back here and your other foot here and bring your arms up. And I'm like, I know there's more to it. There's more to it. So that's how I found Annie. And I found her completely, I signed up for a workshop in Orange County. I didn't really know who she was. It was a 4-day workshop of inversions. At the time I was trying to handstand, and I walked in, and oh my goodness, I've never worked so hard in my life. And one of the things I'm like, do I love this or I hate this? And after the 4 days, I went home to my husband and said, I need to do her 200 hour.
That's cool.
And then that was it. Yeah.
That's awesome. So it's cool though that you've been kind of practicing your whole life. I was just saying the other day, I had forgotten until I had to have been just like 72 hours ago about yoga that was on TV in the mornings. I had forgotten all about it. And I remember seeing that as a kid, and I wouldn't do it. I would just watch it.
Yeah, I would do, because I think I was just I think too, my mom, anytime, like, she'd tell me all the time, like, you need to get out your wiggles. Like, I had a lot of energy. I was always dancing, always moving. So I think anything that kept me in some sort of movement was just good for everyone. Because it was just, I just have always loved to move, and everything I do, like, I talk with my hands and I move my body when I talk, like a true Sicilian. Like, we just move, and I know I feel better when I move. When I need a pick me up, I will just have my own private dance party for 5 minutes, and
that's
my
fun.
world. Yeah, my world's different. And I teach some fitness classes too. And lately I've been making the class dance a little bit, because we all danced as children. It's in us. It's our nature to dance. Music comes on and a child dances. And we lost that. At some point, somebody said, you can't do that. It's inappropriate unless you're at a party and you've had some cocktails. Like, that's become the rule. I'm like, why can't we dance on the street corner when we're waiting for the light to turn, when we're running? Or why can't we just break into a dance because it feels good in our souls? So I sometimes make my fitness classes dance. I'm like, it's only 16 counts.
Yeah. I'm thinking about my friend Rachel right now. She's so sweet. And she was telling me one time, she's not a dancer. She came to ballet with me one time, maybe 2 times, and then was horrified to find out that you have to go across the floor, like, by yourself,
Oh yeah.
And she hated it. But she was telling me that she did her 200-hour training in Costa Rica. And the last night there was like a goddess dance party, and she was just so unhappy about it. And I just think, like, some people, and sometimes I can get like that with like ecstatic dance. That's not really my type of dance, my thing. But like some people, it's a fear to not just dance, to like move their body and to really experience experience all that the body can do, because we've been trained to be still. We've been trained, like you said earlier, to be disconnected from the body. We're all up in the
Mm-hmm.
head. And so to experience any free form movement is wildly intimidating for some people.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
And to really feel yourself, I think it's back into getting in touch with yourself and shaking your own hand. And that's terrifying for a lot of people. I know for me, when I started yoga, Shavasana was like almost fear inducing. I hated being still
Mm,
with myself. I hated having that quiet with myself. At that time of my life, I hardly knew myself and I didn't really like myself that much. So why would I
yeah.
want to sit still with me? I
Yeah.
had to be in movement. I had to keep going. I had to put the distractions busy, busy, busy. So I couldn't sit still. And then I started sitting still. Now I'm like, oh, Shavasana, I'll just stay here all day. It's great. Right. Because you
Mhm.
know, but I understand that when you start feeling yourself that way, it can be a little jarring, but I think it's important because I do think that's our natural state, because I do watch children. I don't have any children, but I watch children a lot. And all of them are playing and all of them are dancing, and that's across cultures.
Yeah,
So
and they run everywhere. They move
they
all the
run
time.
everywhere. And if you put on music, they all start moving.
Yep.
And
Yep.
nobody's telling them to move, they just start grooving. So it's in us to groove and move and feel and have that visceral experience that comes up from the soul. And we've
Mhm.
kind of cut that off for ourselves. So we put other things in place. You know, everyone loves entertainment, because I do think it's that cathartic experience when you see a play or a movie. It forces you to feel. And
Mhm.
you're feeling somebody else's emotions, so it's safe when they're really your own. But
Yeah,
you
right.
know,
Absolutely, absolutely. I was just talking about this on a recent
mhm.
episode. I don't remember, I don't think it's one that's gone live yet, but I have a master's degree in English literature.
Mm,
And that's one of the things we talk about. Like, we get to experience our own experiences through the story of someone else, And so, in terms of literature, for example, it's just a way of understanding yourself. And it's the same with any other form of movement or art. It's, if you can
absolutely.
understand those emotions, it's because you have them.
Absolutely. And like with acting, like I took a break from acting, and this last year I've really dived back in and started taking classes again. And I realized that acting is in fact yoga. It's just a
Mm.
different vehicle. Again, you're shaking hands with yourself. You're being brave enough to see all sides of you in a very honest way, but a very accepting, loving, patient, non-judgmental. And then when you create your character, I feel that I'm not creating an external character. Yes, the character has a different name and the words are not mine yet. It's a playwright's words. Eventually
Mhm.
they become mine. But the
Mhm.
story behind it is my story. It's Johnny's story. Because those are
Mhm.
my emotions, those are my sides of me, all the layers. And when I start seeing all the layers, that's when I can go, okay, this character has no self belief. She allows this to happen to her. She has this. It's like, oh, I know this part of my life. I know this story. I know how this feels. And I can instantly, you can drop into it and go, I've lived
Mhm.
this. These are my experiences with somebody else's names and words. And now that through yoga, I've come so in touch with that. And again, I'm not there completely, not at all. It's a process. I'm a work in progress. And I believe in multiple lives. I'm going to have to do this many more times. um,
Me too.
many. Um, it's really fun to see all those layers of myself in a very kind and non-judgmental, loving way, and go, "There's that," and that side's a little uglier, like we all are, because we're human. We're human. We're a
Mhm.
complex system. And if you just look at it all and go, okay, there's that. And what do I need to do to not have that side come out so much, when I get, frustrated or this or that? Or how can I tap into that piece of me if I'm doing a character? That can be very
Yeah.
beneficial to me. And then I
Yeah.
can show other people that side of me freely with so much bravery, and then they can go, oh, why am I feeling this way? And they might not be conscious of it, but they're then feeling it in them. And I believe
Mhm.
it's this, acting, yoga, all of it. It's the shared experience where we can all be mirrors for each other. So if you take that opportunity, you can start your own healing.
Mhm. It's really lovely.
Yeah. If you
I
if you
don't
take the opportunity, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know much about acting, but I feel like anyone who has a dedicated yoga practice starts to understand how the yoga practice, of course, it's everything, right? It's acting, it's the way we read literature, it's the way we write our blogs, it's the way we host our podcasts, right?
Mhm.
It's in everything that we do. So, but it's kind of cool to think about it just in terms of acting, because that's not something that I have any experience with. I think one time in like first grade, I had one line in a play. That's
Yeah.
it. That's it. But otherwise, all my experience with acting is dance. But in any case, sorry, I'm kind of like all over the place. But I'm just thinking about how when we get into the yoga practice, it informs everything that we do.
Mhm.
For sure.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely. And that's any practice, like whether your quote unquote yoga practice, maybe it's not asana or meditation or breath, but maybe you're a hiker, maybe you're a runner.
Yeah.
Just giving yourself that thing, that vehicle that allows you to have the busyness of the mind get a little quiet. So, for instance, I love this. So, my husband is a math teacher, but he's also a great meditator and he meditates a lot. Let's just say a lot. But he's a high school math teacher. So, I love that dynamic. But I was always afraid of meditation because, again, I just had to sit with myself and that seemed a little jarring. But when he explained it to me, because I said, when people explain meditation to me, they said my mind's just supposed to get clear and there's like this nothingness. He goes, no, your mind can't do that. You just can't stop your brain from working and firing and having thoughts. He goes, but what it does is everything becomes very real and or clear and focused. So he was talking about when I first moved into now our condo on the lake. I was having trouble sleeping because all I could hear were the ducks quacking all night long. They were so loud. And I'm like, oh my God, will they ever be quiet? And he said, so let me tell you, do you notice the ducks anymore in the background? And I said, no. He goes, I'm like, if I tune into it, I hear them, but I don't hear them anymore. He goes, that's what happens in meditation. The
Mm,
busyness gets so quiet that you could only hear it when you tune into it. The other
mm.
stuff is then revealed. And the stuff, right? Capital S stuff. And
Yeah.
he goes, that's when I get my best ideas. Everything's clear, everything's rich, fine tuned, focused. And he goes, then I become a better person.
That's a really that's a really nice way of explaining meditation, because
Mhm.
I hear students say all the time, like, well, I just can't get the thoughts to stop, or I just can't do it. I'm not good at meditation. And I think because there is a misconception that when we meditate, we're just supposed to have this empty mind,
And
and
you
that
have to
there's
be,
just like,
yeah,
oh,
and
sorry,
you're
go ahead.
supposed to be super still in like a certain position and be on your meditation poof and have all these conditions. He's like, if you want to lay down, lay down. If you want to
Yeah.
scratch your face. If you want to move, move. If you want to get up and write something down, write something down. It's your
Yeah.
practice. He goes, eventually you'll stop moving. Eventually you'll stop fidgeting. Eventually you'll find what's comfortable for you in your body to meditate. He meditates on the floor with his feet up on the ottoman because it's best for his back.
Mm.
So, you know, it that was so helpful. I'm like, oh, I can make the rules.
Yeah. Spoken just like a dancer.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, I just thought I was supposed to do what everyone was telling me to do. He goes, no, you're in charge. Like, take advice, but try it on. If it doesn't work, you leave it.
Yeah, I meditate. I either lay down and meditate, or and I know it's not like the traditional seat, but I just keep my left leg straight, because the reality is, if I don't do that, within 30 seconds, my left knee is bothering me, and then I can't meditate anymore, because I went to a
Yeah.
meditation workshop, and this was years ago, and it was more like a series where a group of people met once a week for a few weeks. And, her big thing was just get in a position that you can stay in, that not that you'll fall asleep in, hopefully, but that you can stay in and just be there. And so I just laid down. It was great, because I didn't feel so
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
Yeah. And that's what Brian has taught me with meditation. And just, I love that about the ducks that just get more and more quiet. So then your true self can step into the spotlight and be revealed.
Mm,
That's what it is. And really
yeah.
I'm all about celebrating who you are and like, not in a arrogant way, but in a place of complete self-love and kindness to self of this is me. This is who I am. And this is what I now know I can share with the world. I'm stepping into the spotlight,
Yeah.
and if we all just gave everyone permission to do that, and again,
Yeah.
it's not like, I don't think it's arrogant. I think it's like, I, I am a human being. Like you are a human being. We're having this human experience. And it's not all about like, this is one thing, side note with yoga, how it's all about like finding your happiness, finding your joy, finding your this. I'm like, let's find our peace. All those other things are fleeting. Sadness, happiness,
Right.
bliss. They're all going to come and go. So just know that they're going to come in and go out. But let's be peaceful with who we are. And then just really stand in the space of who we are and be proud of it. And be like, I like me. I mean, it took me a long time to say, I like who I am.
I
Because
think most people would have trouble saying that
yeah.
and feeling sincere and authentic about it.
And even when I say it, there's that little voice going, "Oh, am I being arrogant?" We're taught, and I think really as women, not to be like, I do like me. I like who I am. There's sides of me I don't like too. But a lot of me, I'm like, I now for a long time as a child, I really like myself as I expressed, but now at 42 years old, it's like, I am really starting to like the person who I am because I've taken time to nurture this person and to really see this person. And every day I'm like, I just want to explore more and play more and notice more and heal more. And I'm far from perfect. I'm perfectly imperfect. But at the same time, being perfectly imperfect, we can all stand up and say, with all of the stuff we don't like, I still love myself. I still like myself. And I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't that
Accepting
be
the full
great?
Yeah.
Yeah. Be like, why can't we all just stand up and say, I like myself with all of the warts? I have a lot of warts, but I love them too because it's me.
It's true though. I mean, I know we're laughing about it, but it is true, I hope that this conversation inspires others to think about it. Like, how can they get back to the self and not just shake their own hand but to really embrace that too, to
Yeah.
lovingly find that handshake.
And you know what? For me, it's a practice. I spent so many years just beating myself up where I think that's why I got so tired. It's like, wow, I'm really mean to myself, really mean. So it goes back to shifting the perspective. And even if it means you have to write a list, if you have a journal and say, what's one thing I like about myself? What's one thing I'm proud of? What's one thing that is this great part of me that's only me? We all have that one thing. And if you just look at that one thing every day, if you have to write it down and you have to read it to remind yourself every time the negative thoughts come in, say, no, I'm great for this one thing. And this one thing is only me. More and more you feel it. And even me saying it, it's hard. It's hard for me. Like I'm shaking a little bit because part of me is like, oh no, girl, there's all these other things. You can't be this solid in yourself, I'm like, no, I can because I'm going to embrace myself fully, all of it, and go back to that one great thing.
It makes me think that what you're saying about focusing on one great thing. And, in the yoga practice, we often talk about that single point of focus. When we focus on something like, the outer shin or whatever, lengthening the tailbone, it seems like this small thing, but by really getting control of that single point of focus, what we're doing is expanding, at least in my experience, expanding into all the other possibilities. And I think it's the same when we talk about ourselves. We can just start with one thing. I love myself for this thing. I kick ass for this one thing. And when we really feel and believe that opens up the room for us to see all the other things that we're excited to embrace.
And then what it does even more is we see those things in other people.
Yeah.
So then all of the annoying things that sometimes people attach to, talking about attachment, you attach the annoying things in yourself, the things you don't like, then that seems that's all you see in other people. Everyone's irritating. I mean, I've gone through those times where I'm like, why is everyone so irritating? I can't handle how irritating humans are. Yeah.
I'm laughing
It's
because I feel like I have said this, like, why is everyone so stupid?
yes,
Like,
we all were like,
I
what
have
the
been there.
hell is wrong with people? We all have these thoughts, and it's like, maybe they are being mirrors. Maybe I'm really irritated because it's really parts of me that I don't like in me. And then instead, work on that stuff. If you just don't shelf it and ignore it, it's like those are the things that are the work in progress. You're always looking at it when it comes up again. It's like, well, there's that. 10 years of therapy.
Mhm.
I thought that was dealt with. Nope, there it is again. Hello, old friend. Welcome. Come in. Put up your feet. Can I get you a drink? That's what it is. But start seeing those pieces of you that make you your own special soul, the light that you can just shine all over the world. You start seeing it in other people. And then for me, get a little bit less irritating. And you
Mhm.
start really seeing people because you see yourself and you're like, wow, you're amazing. And then I find, because I came to, oh my God, in dance, I used to run so jealous. So some other girl would get a part and I could not see straight. I was so irritated all the time with this envy and jealousy. And a shift happened about 5 years ago that I found myself being really happy for people when good things happen for them. I'm like, oh, this is a new experience. Like actually being happy for them. And don't get me wrong, there's moments that I still feel jealousy over. Again, I'm human, but it's more that I feel happy for people and glad for people when good fortune comes their way versus the jealousy. So that's the
Yeah.
shift. The ratio's
Gosh,
changed.
dance is so complicated too because your best friends are also your competitors.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
so complicated.
So complicated and so
Mhm.
competitive. And I find myself even in the yoga world, it crosses over. Like when, you know, I used to get really caught up in how many people would come to my class and how many people are
Ugh.
coming to that person's class and why are their numbers bigger? Like all this stuff that just causes so much suffering and it's so
Mhm.
external. And then I had to check myself and go, okay, like what's really going on here? Why are you so irritated about this?
The class number thing, I feel like that's a podcast episode for a different day. There's a lot wrapped up in the yoga
Oh
business world,
yeah.
class numbers. Holy moly.
Oh yeah. And so it's like, it's just, it always comes back to yoga and self, right? It's like, why am I truly irritated about this? Truly, so
Mm.
it's all, I just hope, because I know with me, and it's such a work in progress every single day, because it's so easy for me to go down that dark road of self-doubt and not thinking I'm enough and everything else, that anyone listening to this, just find that one great thing to start and know that, say it out loud, tell one of your best friends, be like, I just realized something about myself, and see how it lands when you tell someone who truly cares about you and who will accept you, and they'll probably agree with you. And the more you speak it out loud, the less scary it is. And it
For
becomes very
sure.
real. Like even me speaking it out loud, it's like, I like me. That was really hard, but it's like, why can't we all do that? Because I truly believe every human is wonderful. Every human is a wonderful, wonderful being, because in my belief system, we all start from the same place. We are
Mhm.
all the same thing. And even people who have made really bad choices in their life and who are now in prison, you know,
Mhm.
I still see the wonderful in them. I
You
still
know,
see that great thing.
your the point about saying it out loud, I think that's a really good bit, or a good practice, if you will. So on top of teaching yoga, I know the Dharma Drops listeners know this, but you might not know, I've been teaching college level English for 12 years at University of North
Mm.
Carolina, Wilmington. And one of the things, only teach online these days, but when I was teaching regular face-to-face classes, one of the things I would have them do with their writing is read it aloud, because when we say something aloud, it becomes really real and really
Mhm.
tangible. We have all these ideas that we can think, and we can even put them on paper, but they become these little secrets. But when we say it out loud and to another person, you can't deny it anymore. And
Mm-mm.
I think it's the same thing when you say, I like myself. And if you look someone in the face and say that, it's done. It's true. It's been said,
It's
and
just
there's
been
great
said.
Yeah. It's great power in that.
And not again, like I think it's hard because we've been told, at least I've been told, like, don't ever brag, you have to be modest, you have to be humble, all these things. It's like, you can still be humble and say, I like myself in a very non-arrogant way. It's just
Mm-hmm.
what the truth is. And we all have things to like about ourselves. And then there's other things I don't like. Like I said, we're all complex beings. And just to see it fully and be like, well, I do like myself enough to try to shift that other stuff that I'm not so fond of. Let's try to
Mm-hmm.
heal the warts
Yeah.
before they overtake.
If there's anyone listening with lots of warts, we think they are beautiful. It's not
They
just.
are beautiful. It's just, I mean, I have skin things. Yeah. So please, I'm not saying that,
I
just
know.
all of the things, just the internal things. Yeah, I think it's important, and I think it's really important, and this might just be a projection, but I really think it's important for women because we
Yeah.
are told all the time how, less that we are. It's just so subliminal, whiten your teeth, poreless skin, wrinkle free, get this summer body, it's
Mm-hmm.
everywhere, on every billboard, on every ad, very much catered to women of how you can quote unquote improve yourself.
Yeah.
And then I think that does something to us on a very subconscious level. And at least for me, it goes pretty deep into my
Mm-hmm.
core at times. And so if I can shift that and say, no, those beliefs aren't true, what's my great thing?
Yeah.
Like,
For
what
sure.
is like, like now the big like hashtag is like, what's your superpower sort of thing. It's the same thing. It's like, what's your great thing? Like, as I said, as a child, I had this huge belief. I just remembered something. I used to sign my name on my school papers, Jonni the Great. That's how much self-confidence I had. Yeah. That was
That's
normal. That
amazing.
was a normal day.
I think you should go back to that. Forget your
Yeah.
last name. You're Jonni the Great.
Jonni the Great. I mean, I just thought of it. I'm like, oh my goodness. And then my sister started doing it like on cards to my mom. And then it was a whole thing that I would sign Jonni the Great, even greater than Nikki the Great, the greatest in the world. So it's just so you know.
I think that's who you are. That's amazing.
Yeah. So if we can all just have that freedom to sign our name, whatever your name is, blah, 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 the Great, imagine how you would feel. Like every day, if you're like, Jonni the Great, let's take the world,
So good.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Oh yeah.
So,
I mean, that gives you a snapshot of how my natural self is.
You in your natural state.
Yes.
It's so funny.
Yep.
So I think this has been really good information for us, but one thing I don't think we can ignore because we are still in the throes of the coronavirus pandemic. So you had mentioned before we were recording, that's hard to say, that you've been teaching and of course practicing during the coronavirus and you've seen a lot of shifts and changes. So I'd like to just ask, what's happening for you and or maybe your students during the pandemic in terms of your yoga practice and experiences dealing with the pandemic?
Well, of course, like I decided to go inside a week before California was under the order. I
Mm,
just felt that was my due diligence. I have private clients with Pilates who are older. And at that time, it was just really thought that it really compromised the older population. And I just thought
yeah.
that was the best thing to do. I'm like, I can afford to do it. I should do it. But then when the order happened, I thought, okay, I need to generate some income. What do I need to do? And that hustle side of me kicked in. And I had a new business up and running in 3 days.
Yoga
That's what
teachers are we're hustlers.
that's what I started doing. I do 3 Zoom classes a week. I've had all these incredible opportunities. I mean, for years, my husband's been telling me to empty my cup so opportunities can come in and just trust. I mean, here I am talking to you. I've never done a podcast. It's my first one. This is my maiden voyage. So thank you. I'm so grateful. I've
Yes,
been
of
wanting
course.
to do something like this. I've been wanting to teach kids. I love teaching kids. I think they're so funny and clever and little Buddhas. They're so wise.
God,
And
I'm so glad there's people like you who like teaching kids yoga. No offense to the kids and parents out there. I hate teaching kids yoga. I don't
I
know what to do
love
with
it.
them. They're crazy.
Yeah. So I was like, I have a now 4-year-old nephew, and I did a test with him, and I'm like, well, I think I can do this. I used to teach kids dance. It's similar. I'm playful.
Mm,
I can figure this out. I'll just have it be like a theater game. Right. So I then posted up on my social media, and another SmartFLOW sister, Hillary Acer, contacted me and said, hey, do you want to do a partnership with my studio up in Palo Alto? Great. Every Friday, I do
cool.
a yoga class for kids for 30 minutes, and it's the highlight of my week. It's so cute and fun, and it allows me to play and have imagination. And we do miming and we dance and we become rocket ships and superheroes, like the whole thing. I absolutely love it. And then I'm also seeing some of my Pilates clients over Zoom virtually. And so I've been able to sustain an income level that I'm okay. I'm so fortunate. I'm so grateful for that. Every day I wake up and I thank God I am so blessed to have all of these things. I noticed some of the chatter with my yoga students. There's a lot of uncertainty, which
Yeah.
is very crushing. And
Yeah.
I am very compassionate towards that, because I know at a certain time in my life, this would have hit me harder. But I try to remind them in a very delicate way that we have a choice of how we look at this,
Yeah.
and allow the emotions to come in. I'm not saying don't feel your emotions. When you feel it, you heal it. You have to feel the emotions, but do you allow the emotions to be your entire day? Or do you have a practice in place where you then can have that shift? So that's
Mhm.
where the yoga is so important. And then even if it's okay, I feel stuck at home. Well, I'm safe at home. And this is time with my family. And this is maybe time that I'm going to get caught up. And this is maybe time that I'm going to start doing something I haven't done for a while. And just be grateful that we all have our health and we have 2 feet to stand on and we can move our bodies every day. And just the fact that we can breathe. With this disease, people can't breathe. So
Yeah.
every time I get caught up, I had a moment about 2 weeks ago that I just yelled, I'm so tired of doing dishes, right? I had my moment. And it's just constant. And I'm like, I've had enough. And I thought, I'm like, feel what you're feeling. But really, for me, at least, where this was coming from is, since I've always kind of carried the weight of the world on my shoulders. I was really feeling the gravity around me, and truly what true suffering is right now. Like, I don't believe I understand, like, having the inconveniences of not being able to go to the beach and not doing the things you love to do. It's, all of our pleasures have been removed that we love, being outside in the way we want to be. But this is all temporary. They'll all
Mhm.
come back. And I just remind myself, I'm like, I'm feeling this because I feel sad for the other people who are either essential workers, who are such heroes, or the people who have loved ones who are fighting, or who are fighting themselves, or who entire body has changed because of this disease long term. What does this mean for them? So these are the things I battle with. It's not me not being able to go to the beach or do my favorite hiking trail. I can do that again. Those will come back.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think the important part is things are temporary. No matter what we're experiencing, whether it's coronavirus or any other time in life, everything is always temporary. So, I mean, it's so easy. I have not experienced the hardships that maybe other people have. I mean, in terms of business, things have been sort of up and down, which is pretty
Hmm.
standard. But my boyfriend Aaron, he's good. We are good. We have a home. We're actually about to move into a new home. We signed a contract to build a house just before the pandemic, before it was clear that this was happening. And it's been a ride, to say the least, building a
Hmm.
house during this. But in any case, we're good. And I know other people are suffering more, but all this is temporary. We will be in the world again. If those who've lost jobs, I know it's so hard, but that too is temporary you
Hmm.
know
And then
and
maybe that's an opportunity, particularly in yoga, it's an opportunity to maybe rebrand yourself.
yeah.
We're so fortunate being able to be yoga teachers to begin with. Like, this is such a privilege to teach this practice, to have access to this practice, to be able to afford to do the trainings. I mean, it's such a privilege.
Mm-hmm.
So we still have that privilege to rebrand, to have new ideas, to allow creativity flow and do something new beyond what we ever thought imaginable. It reminded me, I thought of this a couple weeks ago because I had one of my clients who was having a really hard time, and it made me think, like, why aren't I having such a hard time as other people? Because I do observe people. I think that's the actor in me, that I'm always just kind of watching and wondering. And I'm like, why isn't this hitting me? Like, I'm actually kind of enjoying myself because, like, I'm healthy and I'm so fortunate. I'm like, why isn't this bothering me like other people? Why am I'm not feeling stuck. I'm actually feeling quite free and quite clear. And I'm like, oh, there's that. So as a child, I broke my ankle on a trampoline when I was 10. And the doctors told me I would never dance, run, ski. I mean, the list was endless of what I would not be able to do because my injury was so huge. They had actually only seen it in adults in like trauma car accidents.
Oh man.
I broke both sides of the ankle and shattered the growth plate, and it resulted in 2 more surgeries after that. And so I spent a lot of time in bed from the age of 10 to 13. And at age 10, 5th grade, in a cast, dealing with a lot of physical pain, I remember sitting in the bed at Children's Hospital. First of all, the gal next to me had such a worse situation happening. I was like, I'm just happy that it's my foot and not my hip. I remember having that realization because she was in so much pain. But then I thought, this is temporary. I'm eventually going to get this cast off. I'm eventually going to get up out of this bed. The crutches will be gone at some point. I just have to go day by day by day. I just have to focus on today, not worrying about tomorrow. And that was kind of the approach I took. And I think I've kind of done that with my life a lot. And then when I was in 7th grade, that was the surgery where I walked in for a checkup. And the next day I had an emergency surgery because my foot, it's a long story, the little bit of the growth plate that was still functioning malfunctioned. I was getting a club foot. So both legs had to be operated on that time. And I spent months in bed downstairs. And again, I had to tell myself, I'm like, today's bad. Today you hurt. Today you can't get out of bed. Today you're missing all the things. My 7th grade class went to Catalina for a school trip. I couldn't go. Everyone came back, and I remember everyone had boyfriends, and I missed out on that. You know, I was at home. But I was like, just go day by day. This is temporary. Eventually, you're going to get the one cast off, then the second cast off. Then you're going to learn how to walk again. Then you're going to learn how to dance again. It's going to be work, but it's just day by day by day. And so with this, I'm just thinking, well, how am I going to take advantage of this time I have right now today? And I'm not like, some days are harder than others. Some days I feel really tired. I feel the fatigue, but then I honor that. And it's like, today I'm going to have a rest day because that's what I need. Today I'm going to be a little bit more quiet. And other days I feel very energized, and I do a lot of cooking, and I exercise a lot, and I nurture new projects, you know? So I think just doing the day by day thing for me has really helped me to be like, okay, how am I today? Truly, honestly. If I'm having a bad day, I tell my husband, hey, listen, today I'm feeling some anxiety. I battle anxiety a lot. I'm feeling anxiety. I'm feeling dizzy. Okay. Is there anything you need from me? No, I'm just going to be quiet. If I'm quiet, this is why. So I think these are ways that I've been able to get through this with a little bit more ease. Because again, I'm applying my practice. I'm being very honest with myself and not resisting it. It's like, I feel dizzy today. When my anxiety comes, it's very physical. Yeah. And I actually have trouble seeing at times. And so when those things happen, it's like, I need to be quiet. I need to get back to my breath. I need to maybe do a more restorative practice, maybe a slow walk. And I need to be honest with myself of where I'm at. And that's okay that I'm not feeling great every day. Some days I will, again, it's temporary. The next day I may feel great. And the next day after that, I may not. Who knows?
I think your story of being a kid and breaking your ankle is like a perfect example for that we have these moments where, you know, things are out of our control, but what's in our control is how we respond and how we choose to move through the experience.
Yep. And as a kid who my love was dancing. And for a doctor to say, you will not be able to do this. I mean, there was a moment that was gone forever. And to hear those words, it was like, well, I have a choice. I can either just feel pity, or I can feel the sadness, but also know that I'm going to at least try to find a way to dance again. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's going to work, but I have hope. Like, I think when you go into pity, there's no hope anymore. I'm like, I'm hopeful. I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know how it's going to shake out, but I'll find a way. And I did. I really did.
You also hit another important part there where you said feel the sadness. And one thing I don't want anyone to ever feel is like, oh, it's your choice how you respond to it, which is true, but that doesn't mean we can't feel sadness and we can't feel like the true, reality of the situation when we're experiencing hardship. And those things create sadness and anxiety. So it's because like sometimes I think the yoga world gets a little so love and
Mhm.
light that we forget that life isn't all just love and light all the time. The only way we can
No.
experience that love and light is when we sit in the muck and the shit that we don't want to be in and figure out how to handle it.
And I mean, honestly, sadness in the dark times, as much as it hurts like hell, it hurts like hell.
Hmm.
But I find that because I've experienced some crippling sadness, I'm able to truly appreciate the peace and the happiness. And when I feel good,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, this feels good. I like how this feels. And then when I'm sad again, I'm like, I know this isn't forever. And I know if it's lasting too long, then that's up to me. That's my responsibility to be brave enough to say, I need some help here. I'm feeling too sad. I'm feeling too anxious. I'm feeling too dark. It's been too long that I felt like this. I need some help, and that's, to me, that is the biggest expression of self love, to ask
Hmm.
for help. Say,
Yeah.
I'm having trouble right now. I mean, the things that I've been through in my life, there's been some really, really, really sad moments. And I allowed myself to feel it incredibly. And I still feel it. I mean, there's moments that, like, my dad passed away. That was a very hard relationship. And the way his life ended was incredibly sad. He ended up being incarcerated for 15 years for white collar crime. And then on
Oh,
top of that, he had a Lewy body dementia. So he became a prisoner within his own body, within a prison.
yeah.
And that was very sad. And I mean, I think about him all the time. And even though for 15 years I didn't see him except for 2 moments, I think about him all the time. And there's times where I'm like, wow, that was just so sad. And I'm so sorry he had to go through that. And I'm so sorry I had to go through that. And I cry about it. But then I'm like, you know what? It happened. I can't change it. And I'm not going to
Hmm.
have that dictate the rest of my life and dictate my happiness and my peace. I can make the choice to feel it, but then go, you know what? Instead of focusing on all that shit, because that was shit, I can go, what
Hmm.
did that give to me? What gifts did that give to me? And what gifts did my dad give to me? Because there's so much, even though it was a challenging relationship, there's so much of who I am that he gave to me that came from him. And I mean, just the determination and the devotion and the charisma. I mean, that's my dad. He was larger than life. So it's like, you can take those pauses, again, going back to the yoga practice, to fully see it all, be like, yeah, this was shit, but also it was beautiful.
Hmm. And
You
I think
know,
it offers perspective. I mean, of course, I can't speak for your experiences, but in my own, sometimes when I start to get out of the muck and I realize sort of the gifts that have come from the experience, the gifts are so much larger than the darkness of it all. I mean,
oh yeah.
exponentially, but it's so, I actually just was mentioning this. I do mini episodes on Wednesdays, and I actually mentioned this in the mini episode from yesterday that I recorded. For those of you listening, we're recording on May 20th, so it's probably much later when you're listening. But in any case, I was saying how, when we sort of fluctuate between the highs and the lows, the highs, they're there for a while, but the lows we get stuck in,
Hmm.
so it's really easy to get stuck there. But if we can get out of that, all the gifts that we get from that darkness are huge.
Huge. And that's where a practice, I really feel, is so important, because when you have some sort of practice, particularly when there's movement, it instantly puts you in your body and allows you to be present. And when I find that when I'm present, I'm able to have a little bit of space and there's a little bit more calm and grounding. So it doesn't feel so out of control. All of a sudden, my emotions feel a lot more manageable. And so I can really get through them in a very like graceful, loving way. Instead of like the floodgates open and it's just out of control. And I mean, I had a moment in my early 30s that a boyfriend and I broke up, and I just sat in my roommate's bed for 3 days sobbing. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? I can't stop. It's like there's been a death. And that was a moment where I'm like, wow, I can't come out of this. Like, what is going on here? It wasn't him. I knew I didn't want to be with him. I'm like, there's something else that's been unlocked that I'm not being able to manage. It's too much. It just feels too much. And that's when I called somebody to help me. And I'm like, there's just something going on. I don't know where it's coming from. And please help, because I like to feel peaceful. And right now it is a roller coaster of emotion and I don't know how to get off, and I'm scared, So I think too, speaking it out loud is what you were saying. It's very helpful to kind of put that buffer for a moment. And so then you can pull yourself out of it.
I think too, just going back to the coronavirus, the roller coaster of emotions that I can only speak for myself that I have experienced. I mean, the highs and the lows, at some points that's almost comical to like watch, like how happy I can be and then how sad I can be, and then how well things are going and then how terrible everything is. If I were a fly on the wall, I'd probably be like, what in the world is wrong with that lady?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are feeling that. There's just like, that's why I've really put in my yoga practice because like I said, like for the most part, for me, it's been a really good pause button, because what was going on in my life, I was overworking, my back was a mess, I was in pain all the time. There was just a lot going on that I really needed to press pause and to figure some things out for myself so I could be healthy. And this has allowed me to do that. That being said, there are definitely moments where it does feel like a roller coaster, and I feel for the people who are really struggling right now being inside. And even the moments that I'm like, are we going to be inside forever? And lately I've had this kind of new anxiety. It's like, okay, we're going to be freed soon. And what is this going to look like? And what is this going to be like? And that's where I'm having trouble. Because
me too. Again, I didn't have much anxiety about it in the beginning, but now I'm like, what is going to happen now?
And now that I've like really decided, I've been very clear of what I want my work life to look like, I'm having anxiety because I can't go back to what I was doing. Yeah. And am I going to be brave enough to say no to people and say yes to myself? That's the big question. That's the thing that has been given me most energy around it. And it's like, can I be brave enough to say yes to me? And it goes back to like self-care. And it's like, that's where I've been really practicing. And I'm like, remember that you like you now.
Don't forget it.
Don't forget you like yourself. And you need to love yourself enough to say yes to yourself. You need to say yes to yourself first, and then everything else will fall into place. My husband does motivational talks for his students, and he does this great talk. He works in an area of San Diego where there's some poverty and a lot of broken homes. And so he likes to do his motivational talks. And he does this talk where he has a vase and he has a bunch of rocks in them. And when he presents the vase to the class, all the rocks fit, and then he takes them all out. And he talks about, like the big rocks in your life and the small rocks. And the big rocks are like family, and if you're religious, church and school, and the small rocks are, video games, Netflix, socialization. And he goes, so what should we put into the vase first? Should we put in the big or the small? And most kids are like video games, friends. And so the way it works, he's figured it out that if you put the small rocks in first, the big rocks won't fit. Oh. Something has to be sacrificed. But if you put the big rocks in first, the small rocks always fit. I just thought of this. I need to make myself a big rock And I hope everyone else makes themselves a big rock.
Yeah.
And then all the small rocks will just find their way and they'll fit in the vase of life.
I feel like this episode should be called like, You Are a Big Rock.
Yes, you are a big rock. Be the big rock. It's true.
Be the
Like,
big
I just
rock.
thought of that. Because I think most of us, like, particularly, and again, I could be projecting, I think it's in our nature as women that we're nurturers and we say yes to a lot of people before we say yes to ourselves. I remember my mom said yes to all of her children and didn't say yes to herself because she loved us so much and wanted us to have so much. And, you know, and I now look back and I wish, I'm like, no, Mom, like, I wish you would have done that for you, you know, or like bought yourself that nice blouse or whatever it would be, just to say yes to you. That's, you're worth it. Right. Like, we're all
For
worth
sure.
that.
For sure.
And I think we've been a little programmed to be like, oh no, it's fine. It's fine. I'm not deserving, or I'm unworthy. And that's the practice of, yeah, actually you are, because you like yourself now. And when you like someone, like, I love all of my friends and family, and also I like them and I want to nurture them and protect them. So why can't we do that for ourselves and become the big rock?
Like, I think that's like end of episode. Be the big rock.
Be the big rock. I mean, we're all deserving of that. Yep.
We are. It's true. It's true. So this has been a great conversation, and who knows what I'm going to title this episode, because I have ideas for like soul suit, big rock, shake your own hand, like all of this stuff. So I'll be excited to know when I go back for post-production what line I come from this.
Yeah, who knows? You never know with me. As my husband said when he met me, he's like, I've never met anyone like you.
That's a good thing.
And I'm like, okay. And now I'm like, when like, I find him just giggling when I'm being me and dancing or whatever I'm doing. And I'm like, he's like, yep, I've never met anyone like you before. And I now say, you're welcome. You're welcome.
That's so funny. This is so funny. So can you tell me, I know this is always a big question, and sometimes when I ask guests, they're like, oh God, I don't know. If there's one thing that you want to leave the listeners with today, what would it be?
I think the one thing is, find your one great thing.
Yeah.
And believe it. And if you have to, like, write it all over your mirror, speak it out loud, and then start shouting it. And again, it's not arrogant. It's just seeing your amazingness. And it's even about going back to yoga. If you're a spiritual person, it's seeing your divinity.
Mm-hmm.
It truly is. It's that light that we all share. And then if you see it, if you start to feel it, if you start to like it, if you start to love it, you feel free to share it, then other people can see it in themselves. I mean, it's this endless thing. And I truly believe that this happens with people. You know, that person you're around and they just feel good being around. I have a friend from New York who's a dancer. Her name's Jen, beautiful girl. And when you're around her, you feel good. You just feel good. And my husband identified it too when he met her. He's met her one time. He's like, wow, she is a light. You feel good around Jen. She just makes your heart swell. And we all have that ability to do that for each other. And then to ourselves, when we really see that piece and say, wow, that's great. I like that. I like that a lot. And then you can just go back to that on those days where you're like, ugh. You're like, but I have my one great thing. I have my one great thing. That's all I need.
I think that's a great piece of advice to leave on, because like we said before, it creates such expansiveness in ourselves and in the world and with others. So I think that's a great one to end on. Jonni, if folks want to find you on social media or online, because we have listeners in 163 countries. So if folks aren't in California and they don't know how to find you, where can they find you?
It's my name. It's on Instagram and Facebook. It's solely my name, JonniGarro, Jonni Garro. I think I'm the one and only on the socials.
One and only.
The
great.
I mean, the way I should really change it, Jonni the Great. No, whenever I look on social media, there's people who have variations of my last name, but it's never that name, particularly for a woman having Jonni be their name and Jonni. It's rare.
Cool. So it makes it easy for everyone to
Yeah.
find you.
Yep.
This has
Very
been
easy.
this has been such a good conversation. I really appreciate you joining the Dharma Drops podcast and community and sharing all of your wisdom and insight with us today.
Thank you. This was so much fun. Again, doing things that just make your heart burst. I'm feeling good right now. So thank
I'm
you.
so happy to hear
I'm feeling
that.
really good in my body. And I'm like beaming. I wish you could see my face because there's a big smile. So
Thank you. I hope one day I will. And then whenever we can travel again.
All of this is temporary. One day, just one day at a time.
It is temporary.
Eventually,
That's right.
that day will come. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And friends, you can always find Dharma Drops on dharmadropspodcast.com where all the shenanigans are. And of course on Instagram at Dharma Drops Podcast. And until we meet again next time, my friends, bye.
Bye.